Sure, there's a lot of risk that sits with our third-party vendors. They handle our PII and our financials in some cases, intellectual property, depending on what they're doing for us, they might have access into our networks. And so most of the time, we're doing a good job with the due diligence and pre-vetting those vendors to make sure that they can do the job that we're asking them. Privacy and security impact assessments are not only a best practice, but they're increasingly required by laws. And then, you'll typically have a contract that sets out the performance standards, and that, catch-all clause, we all agree to abide by applicable law. Maybe some more specific terms depending on the industry you're in or the data and information that's being handled for you. And then, of course, the catch-all, we reserve the right to audit you phrase. And that's a great practice. It is a best contracting practice these days, but there's got to be something that allows parties to go ahead and actually conduct that audit. But for a customer who's not skilled in those particular activities, they may not have the expertise or the resources. And for a many-to-one vendor operation, that becomes an untenable and unworkable environment to be able to absorb all of these audits. And we really want our security teams on both sides of that transaction to be focused on securing their own businesses and operations. And so I think what you see now is an emerging standard. The Department of Defense has emerged the MMC standard, which I think people are hearing more about, and that tends to sort of bleed into the commercial space, and you see ISO certifications, SOC 2 Type 2 audits and certifications by vendors. So I think what you're seeing is an opportunity for service providers to be able to do their own self-assessments and self-reporting and give those customers the assurance that they're actually meeting the standards. I don't know that that's necessarily been tested with the regulators, but one would hope that the audit having happened and the due diligence being a continual sort of thing is going to be something that not only raises the game for all of us, but also raises the strategy for making sure that our third parties are aligned with our needs as buyers of those services and as folks that have to comply with the law. Ultimately, it's the controller of that information who's going to be on the hook, and so they've got to have a method for assuring that. And that's one that holds a lot of promise, I think.